you've told us, and we know that you are studying in Salford and you've been a United fan for a long time. So we'd like to ask you some questions about United and the current United. Uh, I'd start with Pogba. You said that fans have criticized him, some rightly, some wrongly. But the Pogba at Juventus, the consistency he had, the flair he showed, why do you think it hasn't quite happened yet at United? And do you think it will happen in coming years?
I think Pogba's situation is strange because I think the main reason for it is he's not exactly matured for the Premier League. I mean, I'm not saying he's not fit for the Premier League. Like, I'm not saying he's not good enough for Premier League and all that. But you always see him taking this extra touch when he shouldn't take that extra touch. He should be passing the ball quicker or maybe dribbling the ball quick, or maybe he just seems to be dribbling the ball when he shouldn't, or he's taking an extra touch when he shouldn't. So it's about doing the right things, especially when he's being pressed by the opposition or when the opposition is trying to pressurize United when they're trying to build from the back. So I think that's the biggest concern I have about him, because what the dilemma that United currently have is that they are specifically playing two half number 10s in their midfield. Like,
Yeah,
I don't see Bruno
Bruno and
Fernandes as a
Pogba.
proper number 10, and Pogba isn't a proper number 10 either. So that's a dilemma which I think has costed United a lot of goals last season and even this season. Because if Pogba doesn't track back, Matic has to roam around in the fullback areas or maybe go play further forward, which makes it easy for teams to expose United on defensive transition. And because Pogba takes those extra touches, or if he doesn't track back, United are sort of pretty easy to expose, or United teams find it pretty easy to get in behind United, because it's just specifically a back two there sometimes, because Luke Shaw
Yeah.
doesn't really have great recovery pace. Van Bissaka is sometimes almost as a third centre back, or almost as a right winger, because right winger is non-existent at the club. So I think the Pogba situation is a big worry for United, and it's not down to what Pogba is as a player. It's, I think, down to how these games are managed, because last night we saw the United played McTominay there, and I think
Yeah.
McTominay is a player who, if United use McTominay on a regular basis, I think United will concede far less goals than they do with Pogba playing there. That's not a criticism of Pogba. I think Pogba can still play as a number 10 a lot of times, but the dilemma that comes with it is United. It's Ole wants United's attack to be more fluid. Like when Bruno plays in, he constantly makes movements in behind, or he comes deep to receive the ball. He keeps playing those quick passes and keeps playing those 1-2s. Pogba is more of that sort of stand and deliver type of midfield player that he has always been at Juventus and before that at United. So I think Ole is pretty hesitant in that sense to use Pogba as a number 10, and he sees Van de Beek or Pogba as a number 10, or Bruno Fernandes as a number 10. I think it's important for United to use Pogba at the perfect time, or else you're going to concede a lot of goals when he plays and when the opposition wants to score goals. So if you're playing a club like, maybe as I said, when teams are being pressed, if you're playing Southampton, you need to
Yeah.
maybe play Scott McTominay there or Fred there, because they are players who aren't exactly press resistant players, but they've got more of that defensive instinct about them, especially McTominay. He's almost like a steamroller sometimes. We saw that yesterday. He was always after Saint Maximin,
Yeah.
and Pogba couldn't have done that in every single time the Saint Maximin got the ball. So I think it's for Pogba, it's about using him at the perfect time instead of asking him to be perfect. I think it's down to Ole, and I think he's slowly starting to understand it as well.
Yeah, like you see people say these things that why is Oli not playing Pogba further forward? Like when he was playing, when he got the job on an interim basis. But people don't realize that then we had Herrera and Matic behind Pogba there. Now we can't do the same with Bruno and Pogba. And
Yeah.
now again we have signed Donny van de Beek. So do you think like after signing Donny van de Beek, how does this midfield dynamic work at United? Can Donny, Pogba and Bruno play together in a diamond? Like now that we have signed Alex Telles.
Yeah, I think the thing with Telesh is that people feel that he's a box to box thing. I mean, he is a box to box player, but he's not exactly a dribbler in a lot of ways. He's more like he's got a wonderful left foot in a lot of ways, and he's almost like a crosser more than a dribbler. He's very different to Luke Shaw. I mean, Shaw is someone who takes a lot of touches on the ball. He likes to dribble the ball. He likes to play a lot of passes to the midfielders. Telesh is someone who's pretty direct with things. He'll probably be near maybe in the last 40 yards of the pitch, and he'll just cross the ball into the box, and that's going to help Cavani a lot, by the way. So I think it's playing a diamond midfield with a left back or maybe a wing back in that shape like that is always going to be risky, especially if you've got centre backs who aren't exactly the quickest off the ball, who struggle when turning. Because Harry Maguire, no disrespect, almost turns like an ocean sometimes. Or and Victor Lindelof is almost, he doesn't look like a centre back in many ways. He mistimes tackles. He's not physical enough. I mean, that's one of their weaknesses. But in a 4-4-2 diamond shape, I think those weaknesses are going to get exposed a lot of times. And in the midfield, I think
Hello.
you can work it out. I mean, in a 4-4-2 shape, Van de Beek, Pogba, and Bruno can play pretty well, especially if uh, I think if Pogba plays at the most advanced midfielder, because in a 4-4-2 shape, you need your side midfielders to have high work rate. Uh, Pogba doesn't have that. We just talked about it, but Bruno has that. So if you're going to play Pogba as a side midfield in a 4-4-2, I think a lot of gaps will be exposed either centrally and even in the wide areas when the fullbacks bomb forward. So I think a 4-4-2 can be used, but not as much as maybe we used yesterday,
Yeah.
or maybe as much as the fans want the 4-4 to be used, 4-4-2 to be used. It can only be used when you maybe need a couple of goals, or maybe you need one goal to change the game. I think that's when you need to use it, when you just want a goal in maybe desperate fashion. But starting with it, unless you're playing a team from League One or something, you can't quite do it. So it's pretty risky.
That Telles and Cavani, they will complement each other with the Telles crossing he has. And recently, Paul Scholes tweeted that Martial, he kind of conned everyone to think that he's a proper number nine. But what are your thoughts about Martial? Can he play that role, and should he continue playing that number nine role?
Yeah, I think Martial, Paul Scholes was pretty wrong when he said, I mean, every single thing that he said in that interview was absolutely wrong. He said that Van der Sar should be a sporting
The
director
director of
when he
football. Yeah.
was at
Yeah.
Ajax. He said a lot of other things which were pretty wrong. He said, go sign Harry Kane. I mean, you can't sign Jadon Sancho. How can you sign Harry Kane? Uh, I mean, Martial's, I think, pressing numbers, the amount of pressures that he makes off the ball improved a lot last season, which shows that Oli has improved him as a player. And last season was also his most prolific season as a goal scorer after that first season under Van Gaal. I think Van Gaal used him as a striker as well. He got a lot of touches on the ball inside the box. If you look at his shot maps and his touch maps, it just shows that he is a striker. I mean, if you look at the sort of in the sort of way that Mourinho used him, his goals dried up and his assists dried up. I think he scored just 5-6 goals in a Premier League season at one point under
Yeah.
him in the whole season. I think it shows that he is a striker, and I mean, I can understand the criticism that he sometimes gets, that he's not a striker who make runs in behind like someone like Kane can, or maybe someone like Aubameyang can, or Vardy can. But and I think Oli, that's why Oli will again go for Erling Haaland later, maybe next summer, because in a way, for me, Martial isn't the specific sort of striker that Ole is looking for. He's trying to develop him into the sort of striker that he's looking for, but he's not quite that player. He does not make enough runs in behind. He's not a proper target man. But what he had in Erling Haaland at Malta was a player who had high work rate, who used to press the oppositions every single time they had the ball. Martial hasn't done that this season. He used to do that a lot last season. he made a lot of runs in behind. That's where he got that instinct from that he constantly uses that at Dortmund. And I think Martial, he comes deep to receive the ball a lot of times when he should not. And that's one criticism I have of him. When if say United are being pressed high at the pitch, to nullify the press that opposition teams are using, you often need to use long balls to be more direct in your approach. Having Martial up front doesn't offer you that. But when you have a player like Cavani there, you'll get that plan B much more effectively than you'll get with Martial playing there. So I get, in a way, I understand the criticism, but I think in um, Martial isn't the perfect all striker. He's got some stuff to improve on. He's pretty much United's best striker at this point, bar Cavani, who's not played a game yet. But a lot of criticism that he often gets from people is unjustified. I mean, that's what he is. He can be pretty languid in his approach, but that's what he is. He's improved his work rate, which is brilliant, which shows that Ole can improve players and shows that Martial isn't languid anymore, which people constantly criticized him for. So I think Scholes was pretty wrong that he said Martial has spawned us because that was a bit too much.
We have discussed Cavani, we have discussed Tess, we have discussed Van de Beek. Another of United's new signing. Not a lot of people know about him. Amad Traore from Atlanta, a huge
Yeah.
fee, just 18. What do you know about Amad Traore?
I mean, well before he came to United, I think there was stuff going on that he's going to Parma on loan, and he was that was pretty much done unless until I think it was just on deadline day. Atlanta told Parma that you're not getting him because they were pretty sure that United will get him, and it just happened on deadline day. But even before that, I think I saw him play once. Not once. I mean, every single time he played because I think I was just about every Atlanta game last season, and he came on from the bench about 4 times, 5 times, and he scored once as well. So I thought this guy is the sort of player who will benefit a lot from playing at Atlanta because Atlanta are a club where you get players who love to attack, be it Papu Gomez, be it Ilicic, be it the guys they've signed now, Sam Lammers, Alexi Mirancho. These are players who thrive on that sort of attacking freedom. And Atlanta are a club where they don't hesitate to sell some of their best talents to uh, other clubs, be it abroad or be it in Italy themselves. And when you get a player from Atlanta, you should know that this guy's got bags of potential, and if you get the best out of him, and if you coach him in the best possible manner, this guy can become pretty much world class at one point. If again terms and conditions apply, if he scores well and if he doesn't fall prey to injuries and stuff. The sort of stuff that I watched from him, he's still pretty raw because of course he is. He's still 18. Every single player at that point is pretty raw. Jadon Sancho was at that point, but again, as I said, if he scores well, he can easily reach the Jadon Sancho level maybe in the next 2 or 3 years.
Another player that was linked with United who can play on right as a striker and on the left, and he was rather from your favorite club, Fiorentina, Federico Chiesa. Unfortunately, he got a straight red yesterday. But what have you made of his progress?
I think I really wanted Chiesa at United. I told a lot of people, I think on Twitter and even on WhatsApp groups and stuff, that I want United to sign Chiesa. I mean, a lot of the views that I get from people in Italy, from maybe Juventus fans or Inter fans, they say that Chiesa is an average player. I mean, I can understand why they say that in the sense that he's still got this confusion for the final pass. He doesn't exactly know when he should shoot, when he should pass, something that Jadon Sancho doesn't have. He knows exactly when to shoot, when to pass. Chiesa is someone who is still a bit confused in that regard, but a lot of it isn't his fault because Fiorentina had change in ownership, change in managers, change in system, change in formation. Because of that, Chiesa suffered a lot. There were times when He played as a right winger. He played as a left winger. Last season under Vincenzo Montella, the manager who knocked United out when he was a Sevilla manager. Under him, he once played as a number 10. Then he used him as a second striker in a 3-5-2 shape. Before that, before Montella came in, he was playing as a right winger, and well before that, he was playing as a left winger. So I don't think that's the best way to develop a young player. And I think a lot in a lot of ways he's matured a lot because of the number of positions he's played in the sense that for Italy, he's pretty much their first choice right winger by the time Zaniolo comes back. He's playing every single game for them. He had to wait for about, 10 or 11 games to score his first goal for Italy. But yeah, and again, that's just one criticism I have of him is that he doesn't know when to shoot, when to pass. That just comes with being played in one position over a constant period of time. And under our new manager, Beppe Aquini, he played as a wing back, which is pretty strange, and he got criticized by a lot of people. So I think that was one reason why he got moved on because we've changed to a 3-5-2 system where we need more of a natural wing back. Chiesa isn't a natural wing back, and we need strikers who are more decisive in the final third, a bit like maybe Harry Kane is. I mean, just giving examples in that sense. A proper strikers and Frank Ribery on the left side of the front two. So I think Chiesa didn't quite fit that mold. So we managed to move him on, which is pretty sad. But we've got a player in Jose Callejon who's more of a natural wing back. So I think we might not miss him as much as people think. But when it comes to his development, I think he's the sort of player who can win you matches. I mean, if he's at his best, he can come out with match-winning moments, and especially in the big games. I've seen it quite a lot because I think this was in the 18-19 season where we faced Roma in a Coppa Italia game. He got a hat trick and we won 7-1, and that was probably the game of his life. And he scored a hat trick after lockdown last season. So I think he's still a player who's got loads to improve on, but because he's playing as a wing back under Pirlo as well, I mean, people won't criticize Pirlo because he's playing as a wing back because he's Andrea Pirlo, but I think he just needs to be played in this one position uh, throughout the season. So that's really going to help his development. And even though he's not developed, it's partly Fiorentina's fault and partly his fault.
So we are talking about the Amad Traores and Chiesas because we missed on our primary target, Jadon Sancho.
Yeah.
So another window where the manager has not been backed. So what do you make of the situation? Like, what do you make of the managerial situation? The owners, the board, where does the blame lie? Because we have seen Patrice Evra come out and say that don't blame Joel Glazer, don't blame Ed Woodward, like blame Matt Judge. But like you have seen the reports coming out of Athletic where you've seen that Joel Glazer denied to make that bid. So where does this blame lie, and when is it going to stop for United fans?
I think it's when I see people saying that, talking about managers like Allegri or maybe Pochettino or maybe uh, Julian Nagelsmann and all these people. I mean, all of that starts from the board. If the club backs the manager 100%, there'll probably never be reports that we've made contact with Pochettino, we want Allegri and stuff. And once clubs start to leak this sort of information out, that's when the fans start to talk about other managers as well. So I think the club hasn't backed Ole at all. I mean, by at all, I mean just this summer. And I think it's as much as it's a cycle. I listened to a podcast where Daniel Harris, the journalist who initially reported that United were close to signing Sancho back in August or at some point, he said that the main intention for the Glazers is that if they want to challenge for the title, if say they're spending about 200 million on winning the title, there's about, let's say, a 10 or 15% guarantee that we're going to win the title. So if United don't win the title, Glazers lose out on a lot of money. The club loses out on a lot of money. But if United finish sixth and then they spend 200 million, the chances of finishing inside the top four are much higher than the percentage of that, than say the probability of finishing as the title winner. I mean, if you finish sixth and then you spend 200 million like United did and finish third, the probability of finishing inside the top four and getting Champions League football sort of increases. It's about 50%, 60%. So if Arsenal today or maybe Everton today go out and spend 200 million on their players, and then they pretty much will be sure shot top four contenders. So it's how the Glazers want their things to be, and they've taken out a lot of money from the club. And and I think Henry Winter wrote this article that Joel Glazer doesn't care about the fans. The only thing he cares about is the money that he and the family and Man United are getting in from. It can be through any stream, through any sort of revenue stream. He doesn't care about it. So I think it's 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 not exactly a club for them. It's just a way of earning money for them. Like if we, let's say, open some supermarket brand like we have in India, maybe more or Reliance Fresh and stuff. It's what that is for them. It's not a thing for the people. It's not a vehicle for spreading happiness in the community or among the fans. It's just a cash cow for them. They don't really care. That's how their business model works. And I think the blame at some point also lies with the fans. I mean, I'll come to the manager in a while, but also lies with the fans in the sense that I think I addressed this on Twitter and people said that it's quite right. And I said that, I mean, we've got people on social media or United fans on social media who don't never really back their own players. I mean, you look at Harry Maguire there. I mean, if you have your captain who came in for 80 million pounds, who suffered a lot, I mean, mentally and outside of football, if you support that club, you've got to be the first one to support your player and whatever your manager is doing and um, whatever he's doing on the pitch. I think United fans have this huge problem with themselves that they've got their own agendas. And because of that, I think this fan base is never going to unite against the Glazers. If you ask maybe say 2,000 Man United fans to come out on the streets and protest, I think only 100 of them will turn up because that's how that's how they are. I mean, every single fan is on the different page. One fan blames Ole, one fan blames Maguire for some reason. And then you've got three fans who blame the Glazers, which is the right thing to do for me. But you've got this whole different sort of agendas where that sort of lack unity, and this that's why I think this fan base is never gonna kick the Glazers out. If they are gonna go out, they are going out on their own terms. No one's gonna kick them out because of how global they've made this club. Because we've got opinions coming in from Africa, we've got opinions coming in from Thailand, we've got opinions coming in from the US, from Canada, from Ireland. They've got different opinions, they've got different people to blame, they've got different identities and different backgrounds and stuff. So you can't expect them to protest against the Glazers or want them out and come together for a protest. So I think this is one thing that's going to let down United a lot if the Glazers stay here for the next 10 years or something, because as I said, they're going to go out on their own terms. And coming to the blame for the manager, I think people say a lot that Ole is not tactically smart. I mean, Zinedine Zidane wasn't tactically smart either, and he's won them 3 Champions League titles. Max Allegri, I mean, he is tactically smart, but he's not Jurgen Klopp. He's not Pep Guardiola. He hasn't got one philosophy. He's just a very smart manager who knows exactly what to do at what point. All is pretty similar. He's been stuck in situations where many managers would lose more games than he has. He has been dealt. I mean, he's been dealing with players that he might not want at the club and all that stuff. He's still managing to get the best out of them. That's something pretty similar to what Max Allegri usually does and what Carlo Ancelotti does, or what a lot of these, let's say, pragmatic managers do. Mourinho doesn't, even though he's pragmatic, he's much different. I mean, but I think in the Spurs game, the one that we lost 6-1, I think a lot of blame actually lied with the manager more than more than the players, because the way we set up tactically after Martial was sent off, I wasn't quite sure what shape it was. I wasn't quite sure what pressing, who, I wasn't sure who Greenwood was pressing, who Rashford was pressing, where Bruno was when Bruno should have been much more deeper. They weren't exactly sure if they needed to sit back and defend in a low block, or whether they should press high up the pitch. So I think that's one criticism I have of him, that 6-1 game. Apart from that, I think there have been a lot of games when we've lost games because of late substitution, but I think that happens with every single manager. You can see that in Italy. You can see that with Antonio Conte. He does that in every single game, but he still gets lauded like he's some god or something. So every single manager makes those errors. Guardiola does that. Klopp does that. And to me, you don't exactly need to be a master tactician to become a successful manager. There's a lot of other things that go on in football, because that's why he's the manager and he's not the coach. And you look at someone like Mikel Arteta, he's just been promoted to being a manager and not the head coach. I think Oli here is the manager and not the head coach. So I think you need to look at it in a lot more other ways than just being the tactical thing that he does, which I agree he's not 100%. He's not 10 out of 10. He's probably 7 or 8 or maybe 8.5. But he's got a lot of other things which make him maybe better than Frank Lampard, or maybe put him in for being the top 10 man in the Premier League. People say that he's probably maybe the 17th best, 16th best manager in the Premier League. But for me, he's in the top 10 or maybe top 7, top 8 managers in the Premier League. And I think, as I said, a lot of blame that he gets is unjustified.
People tend to forget that he's United through and through. Mourinho was in this situation in 17, 18 maybe, 18, 19, his third season, where he had not got his targets and he was crying in the preseason as he was trying to blame the young players. Ole has been thrown in this situation, and not once has he mentioned that he has not been backed. Not once has he, criticized his own players. He's trying to, even after 6-1, he took the blame on himself. He didn't try to, even with the Maguire situation, he kept playing him, told him that he's our captain, we should support him. So people tend to forget these things, but yeah, we are here to support Oli.
Yep.
So that's it, maybe. Thanks a lot, Kaustuv, for being here. Yeah, we loved the session, and maybe we can have you some other time.
Yeah,
I really enjoyed it. Thanks a lot, guys. I mean, we talked a lot, but I mean, yeah, as I said, it's just about, if people really want to get into this field, I mean, it's about a lot of hard work and sacrificing a lot. So I think that should be the key for them. So yeah, it was pretty good to share my experiences as well.